Minecraft mob votes have gotten increasingly hostile with each new year. The first mob vote in 2017 went fairly well. Most people were excited about the idea of a new flying mob and anticipated the Phantom was going to be a great addition to the game. In hindsight, the Phantom was poorly implemented. Many were expecting some kind of a mini-boss that would pop up if certain circumstances were triggered, some sort of cool occasional event. What we got was an annoying mob that pretty much has forced players to sleep through most nights, but hey, at least the membranes can repair elytra. Then, in 2020, we got the Glow Squid. 2020's mob vote was the first big one. In 2017, a little over 2,200 people voted. In 2020, the final vote count skyrocketed to about 741,000. That year brought along the first controversy, as many were upset when a certain YouTuber got his fans to vote for his choice of mob. As you probably guessed, I'm not a big fan of the Glow Squid. I still think the Iceologer would have been a perfect fit for the Caves and Cliffs update, but I like Glow Ink. I use it all the time, so I can't really complain. This vote was the catalyst of the growing sentiment among players, myself included, that the mob vote maybe wasn't the best idea. Fast forward to 2021, and the Allay was added to the game. I think almost everyone thought the Allay was a good choice. I was a fan of the Copper Golem myself, but with its limited functionality for my interests, I'm not a big redstone guy, I felt the Allay would probably fit more people's needs. Still, there were more and more people becoming disgruntled with the mob vote. In 2022, the Sniffer won the mob vote. It was the clear winner from the start. Many have speculated that Mojang rigged it themselves by putting two rather boring and somewhat useless mobs against a clearly superior choice. We could either have an extinct dinosaur that sniffed out extinct plants, or the Tough Golem, which was more or less a movable item holder, and the Rascal, which ran around mine shafts and gave you kind of mid items. Even though I felt it was very clear that the Sniffer was going to win, I still voted for the Tough Golem. It's cute. But when it came time to see how the Sniffer fit into the game, its implementation destroyed almost everyone's confidence in the mob vote. The Sniffer spawns in, it sniffs around, it digs up two types of seeds. That's it, that's all it does. Players had their hopes of having, at the very least, an engaging mob crushed. All three of the mobs from this vote were useless. At least the Rascal added a new mechanic to the mine shafts. Now, do I think Mojang rigged it? No, I just don't think they gave it that much forethought. And finally, there's this year's mob vote. 2023. Three wonderful mobs were put up to the table, and as it goes, only one could win, with the two losers being banished from the game indefinitely. We had the Crab, the Penguin, and the Armadillo. All three of these mobs offered wonderful functionality that could have been added to the game. The Crab increased build reach, the Penguin increased boat speed, the Armadillo added wolf armor. The amazing functionality of each mob presented caused an explosion of hatred toward the mob vote. People realized that we were going to lose out on two terrific mobs this year. A petition was made that, as of recording, has garnered over 500,000 signatures to stop the mob vote. Propaganda posters were plastered on online forums in support of ending the mob vote. While some of the attempts were obviously satirical, many people came out in droves in support of the underlying movement. But it was futile. Mojang wasn't going to stop the mob vote after already planning and announcing it. They certainly weren't going to stop it from happening at this year's Minecraft Live, and as we all know, the Armadillo won. Overall, this made the community very upset. I personally wanted the Crab to win. It could have proved very useful in games like Skywars or just building in general. The Armadillo was my second choice, but I think the Wolves need a bit of a rework for me to seriously be in favor of that. Afterward, Mojang did something that was widely regarded as somewhat malicious and intentionally harmful. They gave special capes to everyone who voted. They had never done this before. Rewarding voters for the first time when an unprecedented number, over 500,000 people, had voiced their disdain for the mob vote itself, felt intentional, especially considering that tons of those people probably chose not to vote as part of a boycott. But I'm not so sure they did this intentionally. Without any definitive proof, I'm not going to claim they did this intentionally or unintentionally. I don't feel comfortable leaning into a narrative that demonizes Mojang without any definitive proof. I just don't see it, but you can believe what you want. That all being said, the mob vote has to end. At this point in time, it only serves to divide the community and to drive more disdain towards Mojang. Some of you may argue that the mob vote is the only way for the community to have our voices heard. I don't think this is true. With updates like 1.20 and 1.21, Mojang has gone out of the way to emphasize their intention to listen to the community. They want feedback. Your voice can still be heard. It may not be as accessible or direct as a mob vote, but I do think Mojang has a genuine interest in keeping us in the loop. Perhaps that is why it hurts so bad when the mob vote comes around. Mojang claims to want to listen to the community and give us a voice, but when we say we do not want this, they hand out a cape to everyone who participated. Couple this with things like chat reporting in the new official Minecraft server list, and it's easy to see why so many people are fed up with recent things Mojang has done, including the mob vote. Then there's accusations of voter fraud. There is some serious evidence that people were intentionally using bots to cast votes for both the crab and the armadillo. Mojang has stated that they were aware of this and made sure that those votes were not counted. So I don't think there was an issue. I think Mojang probably handled that fine. However, my point still stands, that the mob vote overwhelmingly serves to agitate the community and increase resentment of Mojang. Instead of the addition of 3 amazing new mobs into the game, we are forced to pick one and lose 2 for the foreseeable future. By continuing the mob vote, Mojang is going to continue to damage the reputation and alienate the community. It is my opinion that next year in 2024, Mojang should not and hopefully will not host a mob vote. Instead, I propose they take a kind of fan favorites from the previous mob votes and biome votes and add them all into the game with 1 or 2 big updates. This doesn't have to happen in 2024, but it'd be really awesome if it planned out for the near future. I think a couple updates like this would really turn the tide on how the community feels about Mojang. It'd make a ton of disgruntled fans feel good about the game, and it would hopefully remedy some of the hurt that has grown over the past few years. There's no reason Mojang could not do this. Imagine the community cheering on Mojang for finally connecting with the community as they seem to want to. Many mod developers have been able to add mob vote mobs almost immediately after they were announced. And to be fair, a lot of these mobs that come out right after a mob vote is announced tend to not be very complex, or they're very bare bones. They're just more or less made as a meme at this point to say, haha, look, I did it faster than Mojang. And there isn't a lot of love or care put into these mods, but some of the ones that take a while do have a lot of care put into them, and they really do genuinely have an interest of putting these mobs in the game. Mojang has teams of extremely talented developers. There's no reason they couldn't do all of this in a couple of big updates. They have no reason to not be able to pull it off. This is the same studio that pulled off the amazing 1.16 Nether update and 1.17 and 1.18 Caves and Cliffs update. I mean, granted that was, in a couple years split in half, but they still pulled it off. I personally would love to see several lost mobs added into the game. The Isolager and the Tough Golem would probably be my top additions. Without alteration, a couple of these mobs would be pretty lackluster though. The Tough Golem, while pretty cute, wouldn't serve much of a purpose. If Tough Golems could hold a stack of items instead of just one, then perhaps it would be worth a little more. Still, at that point, it's basically just a movable pot. Additionally, I think the Glare, while interesting, is completely useless. We already know when an area is capable of spawning hostile mobs. Both of these mobs necessitate more functionality. Perhaps a Glare could show you the way to a nearby ore vein up to 3 times before needing to rest for a while. Perhaps it could place glowberries at the ceiling of a dark cave to light up the areas for you. It just needs a little more. My point is, some of these mobs that lost would definitely need more to be brought into the game as a full idea. If you want a taste of what these mobs are as is, and how they could look in the game, from the Friends and Foes mod, thanks to a channel member and a good pal in the Discord, for 1.20. A lot of the footage you're seeing is from that mod. This mod adds in many lost mobs from previous mob votes and even gives the old Illusioner a new skin. All in all, while the mob votes are fun, I think Mojang should come up with new ways to allow for direct player input without creating chaos and sacrificing 2 amazing mobs each year. Perhaps a different kind of mob vote to see which mob gets added in first, with the other 2 being added in at a later date. Imagine if in 2024, Mojang announces that the losers from the previous mob vote would be added in 1.22. Then in 2024, those losers would be added in 1.23, and then they have another one, and the cycle just repeats itself over and over again. I think that could be really good for the community. Allowing players to vote on which one gets added first, instead of scrapping the ideas for the foreseeable future, would be amazing. Scrapping these mobs just hurts people. When we see the potential for a really cool addition to the game, only to be crushed because Dreams fanboys wanted a silly squid over a cool new mini-boss, it's very obviously going to leave some people feeling upset. Mojang, it's time to either radically change how the mob vote works or scrap it entirely. They do not work in their current state and often leave at least half of the voters feeling disgruntled and upset with each subsequent update. After massive blunders like chat reporting, the official server list, 1.19, 1.20 as a whole, Mojang needs to seriously listen to the community. Mob votes are a big deal. If you want the community to be on your side again and you want the game to keep growing, keep making those solid updates. But above all else, you need to start rethinking how mob votes are done. If you enjoyed today's video, consider liking and subscribing. If you want to support me directly, consider becoming a channel member. You can get access to videos early, as well as some other things that are coming up. I have plans for an unscripted podcast that I will be doing probably with Emily. It'll be a lot of fun, and that's pretty much it for today's video. If you guys want to see some other content, I have a playlist now that I have made for all of my Minecraft content in the year of 2023. I thought it'd be fun to just put a little playlist in there. It's on the main channel. You can go look for it. It's not hard to find, and I'll thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys all in the next video. Bye-bye.